I want to really dive in a little bit to Barry's 4th season. This video is major spoilers for sure of Barry. You guys haven't seen it yet. I mean, what are you doing? Go catch up on it. I personally think the time jump was a good move. Not at first. At first, I was like, I don't know how I feel about it. Barry kind of makes sense for me to jump 8 years because in those years, Sally and Barry ran away together. Right? We saw them with their son, John. We see that they've taken on new identities because they're fugitives. Sally and Barry ran away, started a new life, not a great life. Barry did find God. He started to be very religious. There was always this darkness in the conversations that he had with himself or the podcasts he listened to and the takeaways he had or his conversation with his son, John, right? And you saw that darkness still living in Barry quietly. Did actually redeem himself more than I ever would have expected, but then at the same time, I'm also not surprised, and I think it's fitting, rightfully so. I feel Bill Hader would have failed if he didn't redeem Barry, and the way that he ultimately did, I do like it. I'm gonna talk about the actual ending as we go. But yeah, Barry and Sally, new lives here. We see that darkness really come out more from Sally than her husband, right? We see Sally take on Emily. She's got dark hair. It's a wig. She's trying to be this new person. She's down. She's drinking. Sally makes some decisions that are pretty questionable. She doesn't even have a relationship with her son. There's not much of a bond between John and Sally. There is between Barry and John. And I actually kind of love the idea of him being a father. John ends up knowing his father to be a hero, even though all the bad things were done. And Sally could admit that, but John gets to see a movie made about his father being a hero. And, Barry told him all the good stuff and he justified using guns and justified killing people as a soldier, right? It's a very twisted dynamic in this family, pretty toxic. It works for me a lot. I actually do like that they jumped ahead. I think ultimately it makes a lot of sense because they were able to tie all the characters back together. Gene shot his son and then escaped out of fear. Gene really fell apart too. All these characters fell apart. And it's so interesting as he's this renowned actor in the storyline, right? Like everyone loved Gene Cousineau. Not anymore. He ends up in prison and the story is twisted. In a way, it is his fault because he did shoot his son. He did take a lot of money from Barry and it all just doesn't add up right. It all looks terrible. So Gene kind of got what he deserved in a weird way. Not completely because he's not actually a killer, but he made some decisions that didn't need to be made. He should have trusted the law a lot more. It's all because he was so afraid of Barry because Barry killed his girlfriend. The tension between Gene and Barry has been so interesting and exciting, nerve-wracking too, So I love where that went. Also, the fact that Barry was actually going to go turn himself in. He was ready to say he did it. He was giving up on this chase. He knows what he did. He's got blood on his hands. He's always had blood on his hands. So Barry was ready, but Gene just pulls the trigger. He kills him right there because Gene has kind of lost his self-control. Barry actually was redeeming himself there. Pretty crazy stuff. Barry is buried as a hero too. So that's very interesting and I kind of love that ending for him. I knew Barry had to die. I kind of thought earlier in the season that Sally was gonna end up turning even worse. I mean, she went down a dark path, but I thought she was gonna end up shooting Barry because it had to be done, Fuchs could have killed Barry. Instead, he really saved him. Interesting decision. It's a decision that I'm all for. I think he really redeemed himself too. He embraced being the Raven after getting locked up and everything he went through. He was tortured in prison and people saw him as a joke at first, but over those years, again, this is really a great use of that time jump. We don't need to see him over the years get hardened. We get to see him come out as a hardened man. You could tell in his demeanor, the way he speaks and carries himself, the things he says or the things he doesn't. Fuchs is a changed man because of prison and it made him a true villain, which was inevitable. And it's a shame because Fuchs could have ended up redeeming himself a lot earlier on and not making so many bad decisions, but Fuchs was always in this line of work and this life. It had to happen. And he comes out and I just love the way he was really torturing Hank with the death of Cristobal. After all those years, Hank has dedicated a lot to Cristobal and he was so in love with him and they went through a lot. And that was really hard for Hank. It was tough to see Cristobal die right in his driveway. It was tough to see them argue, and the way Cristobal was so upset and walking out and giving up because Hank was becoming such a villain. But Hank's character development was interesting because he was always hard, he was always criminal, but he also was so sweet in a way. He was lighthearted. The character was a vibe, and he was a little soft. People kind of reminded him of that, and it triggered something in him, which is ultimately why he ended up killing people that made Cristobal unhappy, because like Cristobal wanted to see some success in a more normal way instead of being pure criminals. And he was really looking forward to building that empire with him, but it had to be done. Whether or not it really had to be done down the road 8 years later, Hank questions it and he regrets it. He breaks down. He knows that he messed up and there's no taking that back. Fuchs shoots him dead right there. They all kill each other. Fuchs survives, Sally survives, John survives, you know. As far as I was concerned, like, it would have made sense for him to die, but it actually was very good that they decided to just give him one more scene. He sees John, happy to see his father. Fuchs was a father figure to Barry for so long, and he realizes that that's a very special bond that he doesn't want to ruin. He doesn't want to break that. He lets Barry have his son, and he walks away. So great redemption in that last few minutes for Fuchs as a character in there, and his relationship with Barry comes full circle. Absolutely love that. And yeah, that was it for a lot of the mafia. We had the Chechen mob go down. We saw so many of them go down, and Hank was one of the last remaining top dogs there, and him and his guys all went down too. And Barry could have went to prison, probably wouldn't have had as bad of a sentence because he was turning himself in, but the world will never know, obviously, since Gene took his life from him. But it is poetic to think that a film was actually still made, even though Gene was so against it and all. And the film was literally made, as we talked about Gene being the killer, killing Janice, twisting the story, because the facts seemed so real. It almost feels like it was pinned on him, and it was. I mean, no one's ever really gonna know the truth, I suppose. Everyone's dead, you know? Barry's legacy will live on in that world, in that storyline, as a hero, and he died a hero's death. And that is just such a fascinating ending to me. And I love watching the son, John, actually watch the movie and his reaction and stuff. Also, forgot to mention it too, but like Sally looks like she didn't really get much. I mean, she'd get back to directing. She's proud of her show, but at the same time, she's just this overstressed person like she always is. And she asks her son if it was good as he's leaving after he says, "Love you, Mom." And I pointed out that she kind of just doesn't say "I love you" back, and she kind of never seems to have much of a bond at all with John. You could tell they acted it so well, and it just shows like there's nothing really. They're not happy, and you know, he lost his father. That was the one that really had something with him. Yeah, it's just kind of a very beautiful ending in a way. I really like it. I heard online not everyone loves it. That's my thoughts on Barry's ending and like where season 4 went and the time jump and stuff like that. Came out about a week ago at the time of recording. I needed a little time to think about it. Also just didn't have time to make this video, but here we are. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know all your thoughts about Barry in the comments below. If you like the ending and what you thought about the overall season and stuff like that. It's gonna wrap it up for me, guys. I appreciate your time here. I'll see you guys all in the next video.